he would, no, it would be fine.
Yes, I think you're exactly right, Mike. If Magnus had just been a little careful, one or two preparatory moves, he just would have won, as he usually does.
Yeah.
But this did look really overwhelming, didn't it? I mean, you and I might have missed it, but it was so tempting even for Magnus.
Well, I might have missed it, you would. We know that.
Well, if he can miss it, certainly I can miss it.
What's the name of this tournament here?
This is the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz tournament. And soon they will, after this, they will have the Sinkfeld Cup, which is the traditional time control. So that's in a few days.
Same players.
Yeah, there's a couple of players different. And
I'm not coming in, I know that. He's not playing rapid, it's a slightly different setup.
yeah, just a couple of the players change, but they're all, you know, in the top 15 in the world. So, okay, this was some very good stuff, but we had a lot of great action last week here on Tuesday too, so I have to give you a couple of those. Well, let's just start with some heavy action right out of the opening. Yes, so this so Mike, this is your game, and who's your opponent, last?
Shoot. I got it right here. It was
Yes.
It's funny because we talked about this opening briefly, and I was
Michael Lim.
when I was going to sack my queen.
Michael Lim. Okay. Well, you guys play old school Basham chess. You know, I really like this. You start out with a Sicilian Nightorf. You know, no London system, no A3. You go right for glory. And it was a Nightorf, and Mike plays Bishop G5, the most aggressive move. Pawn to E6.
Oh, Eric Lujan. Eric Lujan Lee.
Yeah.
Castle, knight to D7. Pawn to G4 is probably the most common move, but this is...
Actually, I have something there I prepared for some other players, so I didn't want to show it. So I decided I was going to do this instead.
Okay. Well, Bishop D3 is also a very good move. Pawn to B5. See how white develops everything in the center. Pawns out. The pawn to E5 was hit by the bishop attacking the queen. The bishop comes here anyway. And this is, and you played queen to G3, the best move in the position. A very classic position. I know Elliot knows this, but does anyone want to guess where this was first seen?
I know that.
47 years ago. is the great Spassky against Fischer match.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Where was it?
The match, Fischer-Spassky.
Oh, okay.
Spassky had white in the 13th game, and he played this extremely aggressive opening, just ready to try to crush Fischer in the center. And Fischer was really afraid of all this stuff, and he castled long, which, you know, he wanted to avoid all this heavy Soviet preparation. And that's actually not the best move, it turns out.
Wimmer showed that, yeah.
This works very well for white, but Spassky tried something else, like to win a pawn with bishop takes knight, and Fischer was able to make a draw. So the big question at that time, including me, was, well, all right, white is playing very aggressively, but what happens if you don't back down and charge forward and say, look, attack knight, and you know, to retreat allows black to get what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go into this position, you have to be willing to charge forward.
Right there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Charge forward and sacrifice. And that's what Mike did. And well, black has to take it. That's knight's causing way too much trouble. And here is a fascinating position.
Against you, I tried e5.
Well, this is the main move, pawn to e5, and very kind of theoretical battle. Pawn takes, knight attacks the queen.
So
And
then
it's-
queen h4, e6,
Yes, there's these games. So that's another mess.
Why didn't he retake or accept the knight sacrifice with the bishop instead of the pawn?
Well, then you give up. Then the pawn would have taken the bishop. If we go back,
Yeah, okay, sorry.
you want to. You're in trouble. So when the knight goes,
Well,
the
it's
bishop takes.
material.
Yeah, you want to at least have some material. But pawn takes is also extremely interesting, and these positions get so complex. You're threatening knight here, just winning the bishop.
Oh, yes.
So it was, what was Lee's first name? It's
Eric.
Eric. Okay, Eric played king d8 to get out of the pin. And there's also many complications. One is this knight check is.
That's not actually the line I prepared a long time ago, and I couldn't remember what to play after knight c5. And,
Oh, you mean after bishop takes first to get
Yes.
out of check,
Yeah.
and knight c5.
And I was stuck here, and so I remember when I was a teenager, I looked at move takes e7, and I decided to try it, but I couldn't remember what I thought of back then either. So
Okay, this is another very complicated position and quite playable. But your move, there's no backing down. Bam! Taking the bishop on e7. And the king takes, and knight checks. So you're a full rook down for one little pawn. It's, when you say no guts, no glory, we're certainly not referring to you. It's, the king can't go that way before it's discovered, so the king has to go here. And there is one problem when you sacrifice material and you play brilliantly like Mikhail Tal. You have to be like Tal and play all the right moves, and that can be really difficult. So right here, I think anybody wouldn't like playing this position from the white side unless they had the ideas of what to do. And I assume now you know the move for the
yeah, bishop h4.
because Mike had forgotten the preparation or was planning to save it or something, and took the pawn on g7. And maybe we'll get back to this shortly, but it's you know, after king to c8,
I missed that, yeah.
getting out of the pin and trying to get the king closer to safety, then there wasn't sufficient compensation for a rook. Although you made a very good try, and we'll get back to this. The very interesting thing is there's a move that gives white at least compensation for his rook. The surprising just bishop to h4. And it's because queen takes g7 is an extremely strong threat. You know, on the rook or on the knight that's pinned. And it's hard to find a really good move there. Like pawn to g6 stops you from going there, but then bishop takes, queen to g5, no way to guard that knight, and that's going to be deadly when the queen takes the knight.
What about getting out of the pin?
With the king. Yes, so like you try to run away, but one takes a look at this position. And the rook there allows a knight check. Meanwhile, you're threatening the rook, threatening to take the knight. White's got terrific compensation for his material.
What about EDA?
I hear. Okay. See, we can't take that check and fork you. That's probably good enough, since we'll win an exchange and we're having 3 pawns already. I believe this is good for white. I'm sure a lot of things are pretty complicated. The best defense, according to the computer, was like rook to g8, guarding that pawn.
Do I have knight h6?
Yes, then a very strange move, pinning that way. Because if the pawn takes, you'll take the rook check. And can move the king so that the rook can take it. The computer suggests take the rook, you get 1 exchange, and then actually take a pawn down here. Because if the rook moves, the queen will get down to g7. So its suggestion is, well, all right, give up a second exchange, and then chances are, you know, roughly equal, quite unclear. But black's king is safe in this line. So that's your opening preparation in case you want to play this line again.
Sorry to take all the time.
Oh, that's, I mean, I love that you just threw things at him and very direct, strong moves. But it's really hard to play exact moves in an attack. You know, almost nobody can do it, even at the top level. I think we'll move on to another Tuesday night marathon game, though. If we get to just the end game there.
How'd that last game end? You didn't say how it ended, did you?
Mike lost the game. But he went down in a blaze of glory, sacrificed all his pieces in his army.
Just like Tom.
It was a magnificent bonfire.
And all the wood on the fire was mine.
Yes, well, sometimes it ends right. You win in glory, and sometimes you have to resign.
Sometimes with the windshield, sometimes.
So here we take up the end game. And this was the game it was Erica Malikan against Joel Karen. And Erica's played really well on the white side, and she's gotten these pawns, and I'm sorry, king is here, and pass B pawn, so she's doing really well, should be winning the position if you have good endgame technique. She decides to attack the knight, giving Joel a chance for some counterplay. And so he checks and takes the pawn.
He couldn't have snapped off the bishop.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the knight is on what square? Here.
D4. The king was on D3.
Snap off the bishop like this. Okay, takes, pawn takes.
Then the rook is hanging.
And then maybe
Oh,
back.
amazing.
Good, you're starting to show us the themes of the position. And, but so she had to move the knight, check, and take the pawn. Now it's one pawn and still should be winning for white, maybe move the rook somewhere. But she wants to use these two nice center pawns and charges forward attacking the rook. Now it gets very complicated here. And do you want to suggest a move for black here?
Rook takes D6.
Yes, rook takes bishop now. So, well,
Pawn takes rook and then push pawn to D7.
push the pawn to d7, but it's black's move here. So,
Knight takes rook.
yeah, actually, if you do it, you've got to take the rook, and so you get a very interesting position here. She sacrifices material, but the back rank mate and the pawn's there. So yeah, what are you going to do here?
D7.
D7, yes. And the rook's taking. And what do we do for black?
Knight is check.
Yeah, get the knight out of check. So that knight check. And she chose a square for the king where the knight doesn't check. Now,
Oh, no, never mind.
Rook D8.
No.
Joel played
That might work, yeah.
Joel played rook d8, the most natural move in the position. You know, getting the rook out, taking the pawn.
Now rook to C5.
Yes,
Mhm.
and now rook to c5, and it's funny. It's just the pawn is living just long enough to cause this tremendous trouble. You know, knight to e5 attacks the pawn, but rook c8, that's the end.
King F8.
Yes, king f8 to just come there, and
There's a pawn on d5.
but
Check.
d6 keeps the king from getting in. So I'll show you how the game continued. It was
Something like D6.
instead of king to f8, Joel played f6, but then the rook came here, and he managed to get the
Couldn't she have played knight to G5 before and let the rook takes knight, otherwise the knight takes back to E6 and protects the rook.
okay, yeah, this
Protects the queen's here.
this one the rook came to g8 and Erica won the game. So you're asking, and I like that, a man who's which move did you say?
After she played the pawn, let's see, king F8, the pawn went to D6 and then knight G5.
Excellent. That would have given the knight back, but the knight's headed to e6, so on rook c8, knight e6. So you would have to take the knight, and rook takes, rook d5, just slightly better for white in the rook ending.
Is that, what's the final position if you don't take the knight?
Oh, if you don't take the knight, actually, and we're going to get
If you play rook to c8. and
rook to c8,
Knight e6.
knight e6.
And b4 is too slow?
Yeah, this pawn's racing there. We might get out of the pin.
Mm-hmm.
Pawn to b5. Push, 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 push. Queen. Ooh, that looks too dangerous. We probably have to go here. So here we can take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You can stop that.
Well, actually, if there and then takes it, then you have rook c7. And the knight takes with two pawns are covering that square, so you take its one, the other queen.
So king takes rook c7. Yes, so I don't want to take with the knight. If
Right.
I push, 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 push. Looks good. Yeah, it's very messy. Fantastic position. But your knight g5, he had to play that.
Yeah.
Except, and this is Joel himself who was pointing this out. We reach this position. Pawn to d7, knight checks. Of course, this is after the time control. King to c3.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Black
just
to move.
black. Oh, black.
Black to move. Well, I know what to do if it's white to move.
Rook check, no. That doesn't
Rook
work.
check is really a lot of trouble on that
Yeah,
back
yeah,
rank.
right. Short of rook d8.
So what about rook f8?
Ah, yes. It's psychologically hard to make that move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of this active looking move, you move to the passive position. But it makes all the difference. Oh, I'm sorry, the pawn's on d5. Yes. And the point of rook to c5, now the rook's not going to be hanging, so you would be able to go knight to e5. And rook c8, you just take the pawn. So you have to go rook c7. Now you don't want to go rook d8 again, rook c8, but you'll move your pawn, and now the knight has this square. So this would have been good chances for black. Not completely over, but the line would go something like king to d4, knight f7, move the pawns. And these pawns are trouble, but so is this one lonely f pawn there. It's not completely lost for white, but good chances for black. It was one of the most interesting endings I've seen in a while. We had a lot of chess this last weekend. The U.S. Open, the St. Louis, the Tuesday Night Marathon. Also, this simultaneous exhibition Wednesday evening with Mamedyarov and Mamedov against our club here. And as I said, we tired them out. You know, that was the good part about it. Didn't get quite the score that I wanted to on our side, but however, there were some games where we really had some chances. So they had white in every game, and I have to say they were really an experienced tandem. Not only were they great players, but they worked really well together.
How common is it for two people to do a silo like that?
It's a bit unusual, but everything's kind of a show.
Yeah.
Sometimes they've even had 4 master players doing an exhibition. And then you have somebody who's very aggressive, they're moving the pieces, and then you have Ulf Anderson or Geary there, and they're moving the pieces back to be safe. Gives you a good chance in the Simon. But these two, they just work beautifully together. They're both very aggressive players, and they understand each other's plans. So it was a tough situation for them.
Didn't they win all the games?
Well, yes, they did, but again, we really tired them out there, and we had our chances. I'll show you the game of Derek Gia against them.
By the way, Pablo and Paul put on a great show too.
Well, we were thoroughly entertained there. Just need a king, pawn on g3, king on e3, king on d4, rook a7. Okay. But e3. Oh, only one pawn. Yeah, Derek Gia had played a great game all the way through, just kind of level. There was, and he was, they were trying to win all the games, of course, they were trying to win. But black pawn's going this way, white pawn's going that way. And this, I'm sure, would have turned out very well for us, except it was a clock sign. So he was down to seconds. And, but played a very good move here. What move do you think black played in the position?
Rook check.
Good check with the rook. His move is even better though.
Knight check.
Knight here, d6, right?
I see
Knight check is rook a4.
C2.
Right down there,
Okay,
right down there.
thank you. As you said, yes, you want to queen your pawn. He played king to
That's
c2.
it, that's it,
And look at this knight.
that's it.
Your pawn's going to go there. And Mamedyarov played knight to c3. If the king takes that knight, king takes the pawn, you win this rook and pawn inning easily because your pawn's about to queen and that one's over there. You're good. Yeah, he's hard pressed not to lose his, to even give up his rook for the pawn. But you'd win the rook and pawn inning. So they played knight to c3. Okay, what do we play for black?
Oh, rook check. Rook check, king takes knight, rook check.
Check. You've got to guard that. You take this knight, and rook checks. King's got to go somewhere, and rook takes knight. Oops, we're getting a queen. I mean, we're going to at least win the rook or pawn. Something like rook here, we either take the pawn or just say, I'm taking my queen, you can resign. So tragically, this didn't happen. Just because he was down to seconds. But that's a clean win, and you guys found it for him in this.
Doesn't rook to d3 also lose?
Sorry, you want to go check?
I want to go rook d3 here and try to take the knight.
Rook d3. Yeah, it probably wins.
And if he takes the knight, I just check and then queen.
That's also true. No tricky stuff with that knight. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, very nice. The other's very direct, and he's a very good player. But you know how it is. Seconds on the clock, you're so nervous, and he tragically gave away his super pawn. Just whoops, pawn there, and that's yeah. That, so. Do I have the last moves of the game, because the knight took it, the rook took it, the king took the knight, and actually this pawn is now very dangerous because the black king is far away, and they went on to win the game. But that was one of our great chances. We had some others. We had a good position on board 3. But maybe I'll get back to that if we have time. Mark Pinto's game against them. He had the advantage with the black pieces, but when you're playing these guys, just one slip and they just pounce on you. Paul and I were comparing them to two leopards, running around. They just don't give you a second chance. But I'll show you one game from the US Open. Now, the US Open just finished Sunday. We had some people there. Abel there went to straighten out all the politics in the US Chess Federation. Elliot went to play there, did pretty well. He also played in the senior tournament, if you remember. There was some good games, and there was this game of the round, each round. So the first round, game of the round, was won by an old California Northwest player, Jim Tarjan. If any of you know him.
Yeah. He's fantastic.
Yeah. He gave up chess for 30 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And naturally came back. He's been playing the last 5 years and slowly improving his game. So here he had black against one of the aggressive young players, Halperin Canley, and Tarzan played double king pawn
That's white or black?
with the black side.
Okay.
So Italian game, offering the 2 knights, which Halperin declines, so both sides get to develop. It's a little slow, so you can kind of choose your strategy. And c3, d6, knight to d2. And he wants to get his knight around before castling because he figures g3 is the best square for that. So Tarzan attacks the bishop, which Canley wants to save. So the bishop gets chased around, but ends up safe on the c2 square, and black gets a little queenside space.
Looks like a Lopez now.
Yes, exactly. It sort of started out an Italian game, but then the bishop gets chased by the pawns anyway, and it's just about transposed into a Louis Lopez. All right, Canley continues his knight maneuver. Since the center's closed, he's not worried about slightly slow development. Knight g3, and what to do with black exactly? Well, but Tarzan's a very old, experienced player, and he just puts his pieces on the right squares. Pawn to h3, and now Tarzan decides, all right, it's enough waiting, let's at least advance. But Canley decides he's got this white square strategy, kind of like a King's Indian or some other openings. He doesn't mind if you take, if you close the center, it's that. And he decides to maneuver his knight around. But that's just a little too fancy. He should have really castled first, pay some attention to development. And so what's nice about this is when your opponent makes a slightly funny move, if you can respond with the most classic, useful move, that's usually the best response. So Tarzan develops his bishop to a center square. Now, there's queen to f3. So can help out on those squares, but Tarzan goes queen to d7. And now Canley doesn't have any, well, if he moves the white knight here, it loses a pawn. So he realizes he doesn't have anything better than simply to castle. And I hope you would play this next move, bring a rook to the center, and all your pieces are on the squares they should be. So Canley follows his strategy. Just if this pawn takes, all the squares are okay for white. But let's get a move for you from the black side. You've done everything right, which I see in your games, but then you have to choose a plan. You can do something wrong if you like. Sorry, what was that? D4. D4, take some space. You made the grandmaster move. And the thing doesn't quite close up here for white. You can't just play c4. Yeah, you've got some initiative now. And the white pieces are just a little off. so that was pretty good. Now Camley plays rook to d1, and Tarzan takes, and pawn takes, and he plays pawn to b4, trying to get rid of the c3 pawn so the d4 square is available. But Camley pins the knight, and Tarzan takes this pawn, and the bishop comes to e3. So you're ahead a pawn, but it's a doubled pawn. The bishop's got a lot of pinning here. And I think we'll hurry a little bit. Tarzan moves out of the way, and the rook comes to c1. So white is ready just to snap up the pawn. He's oh, well, wait a minute. Is that did I miss one move here?
You play knight d5, knight d4 to.
Okay. With the shortage of time, yes, he did that. He just threw the knight in, and this, if you can, we do immediately. He takes, you win the exchange.
That's a big problem.
But yes, what a fabulous position for the black side. Down 1 point, but just a monster pawn here, nice pawn chain, and no problems on the king side. So it went rook c2, rook b8, knight to f5, bishop to f8, knight g4, knight takes g4, queen takes g4, two bishops, this extra pawn. But the nice thing is, if you look carefully, the bishops cover. When the knight checks, the king will just move away. Black doesn't have any worries about his king side. So charge ahead, try to get the pawn one square closer. So let's see, two rook b5, rook b2. I'm sorry, queen e2, queen to b8. Rook a1. Maybe was the rook on c1, I'm sorry, but push, the knight came out, and for some reason, I'm sorry, the rook was on a1, but he exchanged rooks and then pushed the pawn through with the queen. Knight's way off to the side. In the end game, there's just no stopping the pawn. If you trade, rook to here, bishop, and then bishop a2 is going to win the rook. So Camley resigned, and Tarzan got game of the day. Okay, good luck in your round tonight.